Eat this to burn visceral fat, for weight loss and stop inflammation. If you're interested in understanding someone's likelihood of developing cancer, facing heart disease, or how long they might live, looking at the number on their bathroom scale isn't the most effective approach. A much more revealing indicator is their waist circumference. It's a common misconception that being thin automatically equates to being healthy, that the number on the scale tells the entire story, and that significant weight loss necessitates extreme hunger. However, after dedicating almost 15 years to the demanding field of emergency medicine, I've witnessed firsthand a phenomenon that challenges everything we've been traditionally taught about weight and overall well-being. It is entirely possible to appear thin, fit comfortably into smaller clothing sizes, and yet still be metabolically unhealthy, carrying dangerous inflammatory fat that can dramatically increase your risk of serious diseases, including cancer. This isn't the subcutaneous fat that you can easily grasp and pinch. Instead, it's a more insidious form known as visceral fat. This fat is hidden deep within your body's internal cavities, clinging to your vital organs and actively releasing inflammatory molecules that contribute to the development of various illnesses. Surprisingly, the very first place this harmful fat tends to accumulate isn't in your abdomen, as many assume, but rather in your tongue. Hello, I'm Dr. Becker, and I practice emergency medicine. Over my years of treating patients grappling with metabolic conditions and witnessing their struggles with stubborn weight that resists even extreme dieting efforts, I've come to a rather uncomfortable realization. We've been focusing on the wrong metrics. The scale fails. To differentiate between lean, healthy muscle tissue and potentially dangerous fat surrounding your organs. In this video, I'm going to guide you through the precise methods to activate your body's inherent fat-burning mechanisms, with a specific focus on eliminating this detrimental visceral fat rather than just aiming for general weight reduction. We will delve into why visceral fat poses a far greater threat than the fat visible on the surface. You'll discover how your body possesses a natural energy-generating system, referred to as brown fat, which actively burns visceral fat when stimulated. We'll explore the specific types of foods that can effectively trigger your metabolic switch to target this inflammatory fat. You'll also learn about compelling research indicating that thin individuals with hidden visceral fat face a threefold increase in cancer risk. Most importantly, I will outline an exact dietary strategy that can demonstrably reduce your waistline by up to 2 inches in just 8 weeks, all without the need for calorie counting. As a quick favor, I often receive messages from viewers who have watched multiple videos without realizing they haven't subscribed. If this might be you, please take a moment right now to double-check your subscription status. It's completely free, takes mere seconds, and it significantly helps this channel reach more individuals like yourself who are seeking genuine, science-backed health information. To begin, let me explain something that will fundamentally alter your perspective on body fat and health. Your body harbors 2 distinct types of fat, and their impacts on your well-being are diametrically opposed. The fat you can readily see and feel, such as the excess on your arms, thighs, and hips, is termed subcutaneous fat. This type of fat resides just beneath your skin. While it might influence your aesthetic appearance, it is generally considered metabolically benign and not particularly detrimental to your health. However, visceral fat, the type you cannot easily see, presents a completely different scenario. Visceral fat is packed densely within your abdominal cavity, encircling your vital organs like your liver, pancreas, and intestines. Imagine your body as a shipping container for fragile items. To protect them, you might fill the container with packing peanuts. You can pack a lot of these peanuts into a container that, from the outside, appears normal in size. But upon opening it, you find it's bulging with filler material under pressure. This is precisely what happens with visceral fat. You can possess a slender physique and wear small clothing sizes, yet be internally packed with a significant amount of visceral fat. The exterior appears slim, but the interior is under metabolic strain. What makes visceral fat so hazardous is its active nature. Unlike subcutaneous fat, which primarily serves as an energy reserve, visceral fat is metabolically dynamic. It functions much like an endocrine organ, continuously releasing inflammatory compounds known as cytokines. These inflammatory molecules circulate throughout your bloodstream, fostering chronic systemic inflammation that can damage blood vessels, disrupt your body's ability to regulate blood sugar, insulin signaling, and create an environment that is highly conducive to cancer growth. A groundbreaking study conducted jointly by Cornell University and Swedish research institutions followed over 3,000 women who were all within a normal weight range or considered thin. By standard measurements, none were classified as overweight or obese. At the outset of this extensive study, researchers utilized DEXA scans to meticulously assess body composition, specifically quantifying the amount of visceral fat each participant carried, even though they maintained a normal body weight. These women were then observed for a period of 13 years, during which their development of breast cancer was tracked. The findings were truly striking. Women who had excess visceral fat, despite appearing thin, exhibited a threefold increase in their risk of developing breast cancer compared to their thin counterparts who did not carry excess visceral fat. This means they had 3 times the risk. Externally, these women looked virtually identical, wore the same clothing sizes, and weighed roughly the same on the scale. However, their internal fat composition was the decisive factor determining their cancer risk. The underlying mechanism is attributed to those inflammatory molecules. Visceral fat is not a passive storage depot. It actively leaks inflammatory signals into your bloodstream on an ongoing basis. Consider inflammation like the embers of a campfire. A small number of embers can be manageable, even beneficial. However, if you have a microscopic tumor, a small cluster of abnormal cells that your immune system is effectively keeping in check, and you introduce a significant amount of inflammation, it's akin to pouring gasoline on those embers. This can rapidly escalate into a raging inferno, providing the tumor with the growth signals it desperately needs to proliferate. However, this is only part of the story. Elevated levels of visceral fat are not solely linked to breast cancer. Extensive research has established a connection between high visceral fat and an increased risk of 14 other types of cancer, including cancers of the colon, ovaries, lungs, prostate, pancreas, liver, and kidneys. The systemic inflammation fostered by visceral fat creates an internal environment that promotes the development of cancer throughout the entire body. Beyond cancer, excess visceral fat also significantly elevates the risk of developing type 2 diabetes, heart disease, stroke, dementia, and fatty liver disease. This is precisely why measuring your waist circumference serves as a more accurate predictor of future health outcomes than metrics like body mass index, BMI, or overall body weight. Your waist circumference is a direct reflection of the amount of visceral fat you are carrying. For women, a waist measurement exceeding 35 inches is indicative of excess visceral fat. For men, this threshold is 40 inches. It's important to note, however, that even if your measurements fall below these thresholds, it's still beneficial to minimize your visceral fat levels as much as possible. Now, here's a revelation that truly astonished me when I first encountered it, and it's bound to alter your understanding of how weight gain occurs. Where do you believe visceral fat is first deposited when you begin to gain weight? The vast majority of people, around 90%, will answer the belly, and this seems illogical given what we observe in the mirror. However, this is incorrect. The initial site for visceral fat accumulation is actually your tongue. Yes, your tongue can become fatter. Anatomically, the tip of your tongue is composed entirely of muscle, allowing for incredible dexterity. The middle section is also muscular, designed for manipulating food within your mouth. But the back third of your tongue naturally contains a degree of marbling, similar to a ribeye steak. When your body begins to accumulate excess visceral fat, even if you appear lean elsewhere, one of the earliest locations for this fat to deposit is in the back of your tongue, leading to increased fat marbling. Studies investigating this phenomenon in young, thin Swedish women revealed that as they gained visceral fat, their tongues became fatter. Their bed partners noticed they began snoring unexpectedly. This occurs because during sleep, your muscles relax. A fatter tongue, when relaxed, can drift back into your airway airway, obstructing breathing and leading to sleep apnea. Even individuals who are otherwise thin can develop sleep apnea if they carry excess visceral fat. This isn't solely about the diameter of the airway, it's specifically about the tongue fat obstructing the passage. This provides a clear illustration of how visceral fat can manifest in unexpected places, contributing to health problems that you wouldn't typically associate with body composition. The remarkable news is that your body possesses an intrinsic system designed to burn visceral fat, a system that most people are completely unaware of. You have two primary types of fat tissue: white fat, which serves as storage fat, as we've discussed, and brown fat. Brown fat is metabolically active and functions by burning energy to generate heat. It's termed brown because it is densely packed with mitochondria, the energy-producing powerhouses within cells. Mitochondria contain high concentrations of iron, and when iron oxidizes, it turns a brown color. A high abundance of mitochondria results in a brown appearance. Infants are born with significant amounts of brown fat to help them regulate their body temperature. As we age, we lose much of this, but adults still retain smaller deposits, primarily located around the neck, upper back, and between the shoulder blades. What makes brown fat so extraordinary is its ability to burn calories. When activated, the mitochondria within brown fat cells ramp up their activity, consuming energy to produce heat. And where does brown fat obtain the fuel for this process? It draws upon your white fat stores, and critically, it prioritizes visceral fat. Brown fat preferentially utilizes the most readily available metabolic fuel, which is visceral fat. Therefore, when you activate your brown fat, you are effectively turning on an internal furnace within your body that uses visceral fat as its primary energy source. Think of brown fat as a small space heater. When it's off, it simply exists. But when you switch it on, it begins to burn fuel to generate warmth. The crucial question then becomes, how do you activate this internal furnace? One effective method is exposure to cold. When you are exposed to cold temperatures, your brain releases stress hormones called epinephrine and norepinephrine. These hormones travel through your nervous system and bind to specific receptors on brown fat cells, known as beta-3 adrenergic receptors. This interaction triggers the mitochondria in brown fat to begin burning fuel. Engaging in cold plunges, taking cold showers, or sleeping in a cool environment around 65 degrees Fahrenheit are all ways to activate brown fat. However, not everyone is inclined to take ice baths. The exciting discovery is that certain foods can activate brown fat through the very same pathways, eliminating the necessity for cold exposure. The underlying mechanism for brown fat activation involves several key steps. First, a trigger activates the beta-3 adrenergic receptor. This then stimulates a protein called uncoupling protein 1, UCP1, which is located on the mitochondria. UCP1 essentially decouples energy production from ATP synthesis. This means that instead of storing energy, the mitochondria expend it as heat. Certain compounds found in foods are capable of activating these precise pathways. The catechins present in tea, particularly a compound known as EGCG, have been shown to activate brown fat. Omega-3 fatty acids, abundant in seafood, also activate brown fat. Specific polyphenols found in various plant-based foods have a similar activating effect. When you consume these foods regularly, you are essentially keeping your internal furnace running, continuously burning visceral fat. A significant study conducted by researchers in Asia involved women between the ages of 35 and 65 who were overweight and diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. These participants were divided into two groups. One group consumed 4 cups of green tea daily for a period of 8 weeks, while the control group maintained their usual habits. At the conclusion of the 8-week period, the green tea group experienced an average weight loss of approximately 3 pounds. However, the truly remarkable finding was that they also lost nearly 2 inches from their waist circumference, equivalent to 2 belt notches. This signifies a substantial reduction in visceral fat. While the overall weight loss was modest, the transformation in body composition was dramatic, indicating that they were specifically targeting and burning that dangerous internal fat. Furthermore, the study monitored key metabolic markers, revealing that the green tea group exhibited lower fasting blood glucose levels, reduced blood pressure, and improved cholesterol profiles, all of which are indicators of reduced visceral fat and enhanced metabolic health. Another study examined healthy women between the ages of 35 and 50 who had some excess weight but were not diabetic. These women drank tea with their breakfast, lunch, and in the afternoon for 8 weeks. The tea drinking group lost 2 pounds and saw their waist circumference decrease by almost 1 inch. Again, the reduction in waist size was greater than what would typically be expected from a 2-pound weight loss, highlighting the targeted burning of visceral fat. The scientific explanation is that the EGCG compound in green tea activates brown fat. This activated brown fat then burns visceral fat, leading to a shrinking waistline as that deep internal fat is eliminated. Now, let's discuss which specific foods are most potent in activating this fat-burning system. Understanding how visceral fat functions and how brown fat can metabolize it, the crucial question becomes, what exactly should you eat? What are the specific foods and their precise quantities? Based on current research and my recommendations to patients struggling with stubborn visceral fat, here is a precise protocol. The cornerstone of this approach is tea, and not all teas are created equal. Green tea has been the most extensively studied. You should aim for at least 3 cups daily, with 4 being ideal. It's important to use actual tea bags or loose leaf tea rather than bottled teas from the store, which often contain minimal active compounds and frequently have added sugars. Proper brewing is essential. Heat your water to about 175 degrees Fahrenheit, which means it should be steaming but not vigorously boiling. If you use boiling water, allow it to cool for approximately 3 minutes before steeping your tea for 3 to 5 minutes. This steeping process allows the EGCG and catechins to be extracted. Avoid adding dairy milk, as the proteins in milk can bind to catechins and inhibit their absorption. Black coffee is perfectly acceptable, or you can use plant-based milks like almond or oat milk if you prefer a lighter beverage. Adding lemon is also beneficial, as the vitamin C can help preserve the catechins. Consistently drinking 4 cups of green tea daily for 8 weeks, according to research findings, can lead to a reduction of 2 to 4 inches in waist circumference, even if your overall weight loss is modest. This demonstrates the significant impact of targeted visceral fat reduction. If green tea doesn't appeal to you, there are excellent alternatives. Matcha, a powdered green tea, is even more potent than regular green tea. Matcha is made by grinding whole tea leaves into a fine powder, which is then mixed into water. With standard green tea, you steep the leaves and then discard them, absorbing only what dissolves into the water. By consuming the entire matcha leaf, you ingest all the EGCG, catechins, and beneficial fiber. This makes matcha significantly more concentrated. 1 cup of matcha can deliver the equivalent of roughly 3 cups of regular green tea in terms of active compounds. If you opt for matcha, 1 to 2 cups daily should be sufficient. Oolong tea is another valuable option. Oolong tea is partially oxidized, giving it a color between green and black tea. It still contains substantial amounts of catechins and has been shown in research studies to reduce waist circumference. You can often find oolong tea at Chinese restaurants, and it has a slightly oxidized, smooth flavor without the distinct grassy taste of green tea. Consuming 3 to 4 cups daily can provide benefits comparable to those of green tea. For those seeking an even more intense option, consider pure tea. Pure is a fermented black tea originating from southwest China, often aged for extended periods, sometimes years, which imparts a smoky, earthy flavor. The fermentation process introduces beneficial bacteria, making it a probiotic tea. Pure contains catechins, and additionally, it supports gut health, which independently aids in reducing visceral fat and inflammation. Studies have indicated that pure tea can reduce waist circumference to a degree comparable to green tea. 2 to 3 cups daily are considered effective. The second crucial category of foods includes seafood rich in omega-3 fatty acids. The research in this area is truly remarkable. A study conducted in Iceland investigated the effects of omega-3s on visceral fat and metabolism. Participants, who were overweight adults, were instructed to consume salmon 3 times per week for 8 weeks while adhering to a moderate calorie restriction. The group that ate salmon lost up to 15 pounds over the 8-week period. This is a significant weight loss of 15 pounds in just 2 months, simply by incorporating salmon into a reasonable diet. The omega-3s present in salmon are known to activate brown fat, boost metabolic rate, and specifically target visceral fat for burning. A 5-ounce serving of salmon contains approximately 1,565 milligrams of marine omega-3 fatty acids, primarily EPA and DHA. However, it gets even more interesting. The same researchers conducted a trial with what they presumed would be a less oily fish, cod. Cod is a white fish and not typically considered high in omega-3s. A 5-ounce serving of cod contains only 284 milligrams of omega-3s, which is less than 20% of the amount found in salmon. Participants in this group also ate cod 3 times per week for 8 weeks, following the same moderate calorie restriction. The cod group lost 10 pounds over the 8 weeks. This weight loss was achieved from consuming a fish with relatively low omega-3 content. This finding is incredibly important. It suggests you don't require exceptionally high amounts of omega-3s to activate brown fat and burn visceral fat. The omega-3 level found in cod, 284 milligrams per serving, appears to be sufficient. This expands the range of seafood options considerably. To translate that cod omega-3 level into other commonly consumed seafoods, to achieve the equivalent of 1 serving of cod, you would need about 4 medium Gulf shrimp, 8 oysters, 1 forkful of mackerel, or half a piece of halibut, roughly the size of a deck of cards. Even white fish, shellfish, and smaller portions of oily fish provide enough omega-3s to trigger these beneficial metabolic effects. The practical implication is to consume seafood at least 3 times per week, and ideally 4. Aim for variety. Have salmon one day, shrimp another, and cod on another. This diversity ensures you are obtaining different omega-3 profiles and a range of other valuable nutrients. The third key component is time-restricted eating. This is where you can significantly enhance the benefits derived from tea and seafood without altering what you eat, but rather by controlling when you eat. Your metabolism operates in 2 distinct modes. When you are eating and your insulin levels are elevated, your body prioritizes energy storage, directing fuel into your cells. Conversely, when you are not eating and your insulin levels are low, your metabolism shifts to burning stored fat for energy. Our bodies are inherently designed this way. The longer you can extend the fasting period during which your body is in fat-burning mode, the more visceral fat you will effectively eliminate. Here's the simplest approach that anyone can implement. Stop eating after dinner. For instance, if you finish your dinner at 7 p.m. and clean up the kitchen by 8 p.m., make a commitment to not consume anything else afterward. This means no late-night snacks, no trips to the refrigerator, and no dessert before bed. Close your eating window at 8 p.m. If you typically go to bed around 11 p.m., you have just gained 3 hours of dedicated fat-burning time before you go to sleep. During sleep, your body continues to burn fat for approximately another 8 hours if you sleep until 7 a.m. This adds up to a total of 11 hours in a fat-burning state. Upon waking, resist the urge to immediately eat breakfast. Engage in your morning routine. Shower, get dressed, go for a walk, check your emails, whatever your usual activities are. Wait an additional hour before having your first meal. By doing this, you have extended your fasting window to 12 hours. 8 hours of sleep, plus 3 hours after dinner, plus 1 hour in the morning. You have effectively spent half your day in a fat-burning mode without undertaking any extreme measures. If you wish to further optimize this, consider skipping breakfast entirely. Aim to have your first meal around noon or 1 p.m. This then puts you at a 16-hour fasting window and an 8-hour eating window, which is the basis of classic intermittent fasting. However, you don't need to adopt such a stringent approach. A 12 to 14-hour fasting window is effective and sustainable for most individuals. One study that compared a 12-hour time-restricted eating pattern to normal eating habits found that participants practicing the 12-hour restriction experienced greater loss of visceral fat specifically, even when their total calorie intake remained the same. This emphasizes that the timing of your meals is as critical as the food choices themselves. Now, let me share some practical tips derived from my 15 years of clinical experience to help you maximize visceral fat loss while simultaneously preserving muscle mass and maintaining high energy levels. Firstly, don't be afraid of food. The traditional approach often involved drastic calorie restriction, constant calorie counting, and a pervasive feeling of deprivation and hunger. This is not a sustainable strategy and is entirely unnecessary. Instead, focus on incorporating beneficial foods, primarily tea and seafood, rather than restricting everything else. When you consistently drink green tea and consume omega-3 rich seafood, your appetite naturally self-regulates. You'll experience greater satiety, find yourself craving less sugar, and your body will preferentially target visceral fat for burning. Secondly, precise timing of your eating window is paramount. The 12 to 14-hour overnight fast provides your body with an extended period for fat burning without inducing feelings of starvation. For most people, the period between 8 p.m. and 7 a.m. is already a non-eating period. You are essentially formalizing what naturally occurs. The real advantage lies in extending this period slightly by delaying your first meal by an hour after waking. This seemingly small extension in the morning can yield surprisingly significant metabolic benefits. Thirdly, measure your progress accurately. While weighing yourself can provide some data, that number alone doesn't reveal what truly matters. Instead, measure your waist circumference at the level of your belly button. Perform this measurement once a week on the same day and at the same time before eating. Track this number diligently. A reduction of 1 to 2 inches over an 8-week period is a strong indicator that you are successfully reducing visceral fat. Even if the number on the scale doesn't change dramatically, your waist circumference tells the true story of your progress. Remember, it is entirely possible to lose visceral fat while maintaining or even increasing muscle mass. This means the scale might show minimal change, but your body composition and overall health are undergoing a significant transformation. Fourthly, incorporating cold exposure can potentially accelerate your results if you are comfortable with it. This doesn't necessitate ice baths. Simply sleeping in a cooler room around 65 degrees Fahrenheit instead of the typical 72 degrees can activate brown fat. Your body will expend slightly more energy to maintain its core temperature, which in turn prompts brown fat to engage and burn more visceral fat. Some individuals opt for cool showers, taking the last 2 minutes to lower the water temperature to a level that is uncomfortably cool, but not freezing. This temperature shock triggers the release of stress hormones that activate brown fat. However, this is entirely optional. The tea and seafood protocol is effective on its own, without the need for cold exposure. Finally, combining foods can create a synergistic effect. Drinking green tea alongside a meal that includes seafood can amplify the benefits of both. The catechins from tea and the omega-3s from seafood activate brown fat through different pathways, leading to an additive and more powerful effect. A practical example of such a meal would be grilled salmon served with vegetables, accompanied by a cup of green tea. This meal strategically targets multiple metabolic pathways simultaneously. Don't neglect other anti-inflammatory foods. While tea and seafood form the foundation, incorporating foods such as berries, leafy green vegetables, olive oil, nuts, and spices like turmeric can help reduce systemic inflammation. Lowering inflammation independently contributes to the reduction of visceral fat. Visceral fat thrives in an inflammatory internal environment, so by reducing inflammation, you make it easier for your body to eliminate visceral fat. The most common mistake I observe is individuals becoming overly fixated on the scale and becoming discouraged when weight loss isn't rapid. It's crucial to remember that the scale reflects the combined weight of your bones, muscles, water, and all types of fat. You want healthy, dense bones for structural integrity and substantial muscle mass for strength and metabolic health. Adequate hydration is also essential. The only component you ideally want to minimize is visceral fat, and the scale simply cannot differentiate this. This is why measuring your waist circumference is a far more informative metric. You can significantly reduce your waistline by 3 inches while only losing 5 pounds overall. This scenario indicates you've successfully burned a substantial amount of visceral fat while maintaining or even building muscle, which is the most desirable outcome. Another common error is believing you must achieve perfection from the outset. You do not need to simultaneously drink 4 cups of green tea, eat salmon 3 times a week, maintain a 16-hour fast, and take cold showers all at once. Begin with one change. Incorporate green tea into your morning routine and maintain this consistently for 2 weeks. Then, add seafood to your diet twice a week. Build these habits gradually. Sustainable change is a product of small, consistent improvements, not drastic overhauls that last only a few days. One final common pitfall is assuming supplements can replace the benefits of whole foods. While you can purchase green tea extract capsules, omega-3 fish oil pills, and various fat-burning supplements, their effectiveness is typically limited compared to the consumption of actual food. The catechins found in brewed green tea are accompanied by hundreds of other beneficial compounds that work synergistically. Similarly, the omega-3s in salmon are paired with protein, vitamin D, selenium, and other essential nutrients that enhance their overall impact. Supplements often provide isolated compounds without this crucial supporting cast. Whole foods are consistently more potent. Ultimately, carrying excess visceral fat does not seal your fate for developing chronic diseases, and eliminating it does not require extreme or arduous measures. The patients I've seen who have successfully reduced their visceral fat and transformed their metabolic health are not engaging in radical practices. They are consistently drinking tea daily, eating seafood a few times per week, and stopping their food intake a few hours before bedtime. These are simple, sustainable habits that effectively activate brown fat and shift their metabolism towards burning inflammatory fat. Your body naturally desires to be healthy. It possesses inherent systems designed to burn visceral fat. All that's required is to activate these systems with the correct signals. Tea provides the catechins that initiate the metabolic switch. Seafood delivers the omega-3s that keep brown fat active. Time-restricted eating provides your body with extended periods to burn stored fat. By consistently combining these 3 strategies for 8 weeks, you will experience a significant reduction in your waist circumference, even if your overall weight loss is modest. This reduction in your waistline signifies the disappearance of visceral fat, a decrease in inflammation, and a dramatic drop in your risk of developing chronic diseases. To summarize what we've covered, visceral fat is a metabolically active, inflammatory type of fat that can triple your risk of cancer and drive chronic diseases, even in individuals who appear thin. The scale fails to differentiate between harmful visceral fat and beneficial muscle tissue, which is why waist circumference serves as a more accurate health indicator. Your body possesses brown fat, which actively burns visceral fat when stimulated by cold exposure or specific foods. Green tea contains catechins that activate brown fat. Consuming 3 to 4 cups daily can lead to a waist circumference reduction of 1 to 2 inches in 8 weeks. Seafood provides omega-3s that also activate brown fat. 3 servings per week of any seafood, including lower fat options like cod or shrimp, can stimulate visceral fat burning. Time-restricted eating, specifically a 12 to 14-hour overnight fast, extends your fat-burning window and accelerates visceral fat loss. Measuring your waist circumference weekly is a more precise method of tracking progress than relying solely on the scale. You can shed significant amounts of visceral fat while maintaining or even increasing your muscle mass, meaning the scale might show minimal change, but your health will be undergoing a dramatic positive transformation. Your metabolic health is not dictated by your weight alone. It is determined by your body composition and, most importantly, by the quantity of inflammatory visceral fat you carry. You possess more control over this than you might realize. If you found this information helpful, please consider subscribing and giving this video a like. This support helps me reach more individuals like you who are seeking genuine science-based information to improve their health. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.